Republicans absolutely voted for this.
Okay,
number
people
one.
do not want government waste, that's for sure. But they didn't vote for foresters to get fired.
Look, you
Veterans to be fired.
You guys keep trying to create this fantasy land where Donald Trump is not popular, where Republicans are mad.
Republicans are mad. He shut down the town halls.
Can you name a single Democrat in Congress who's more popular than Donald Trump right now?
Listen,
Answer, no.
Scott,
the reality is Republicans are so happy with this. They're not upset about it.
No, they
The
are.
American people are happy about what's going on right now because for the first time in a long time, a president said,
Scott,
I'm actually going to reduce the size of government.
That's Scott Jennings doing what he does best, dropping truth bombs in the midst of left-wing lunatic panels on CNN, and he just got some massive air cover. It's being called the shock poll, but of course, not for us. It's shock and awe for the Democrats and their mouthpieces in the legacy media. According to JL Partners in the Daily Mail, Trump is currently polling at his highest level ever this week. His approval is now a staggering 54%, a +8 over his disapproval. The Daily Mail has launched a monthly tracker to keep tabs on Trump's approval ratings throughout his presidency, and after just 6 full weeks in office, he is currently polling higher than he ever has. Now, what's even more astonishing is which demographic appears to be bolstering those numbers. This is absolutely awesome. Our good friend Mark Mitchell over at Rasmussen is corroborating the findings of the Daily Mail poll. It's young voters, the youngest voters under the age of 40 that are giving Trump his highest support. We're talking, gang, 60% approval among voters under the age of 40. 60% among an age demographic that voted for Biden by a margin of 30% back in 2020. No other age group comes close to this level of support for Trump. And the reason why this is so interesting is because it completely overturns what's called the cultural backlash thesis, which argues that the only reason why Trump and nationalist populists like him around the world are winning is because, in the end, it's just the last hurrah, the last gasp of an old, dying, white male culture. Old, dying white men hate this new world of identity politics, this new progressive woke world inevitably rising up around them. And so they're voting for the most extreme radical right candidates to push back against this inevitable sea change. But don't worry, these old white men will eventually die off, and soon, and then we can all enjoy this wonderful new progressive age unencumbered. That's what's called the cultural backlash thesis, and it would be fine if it weren't for the inconvenient truth that it is wrong in every possible conceivable way, most especially that young people are progressive. Gen Z, as it turns out, is actually the most conservative generation we have on record, and they're proving it in real time. Ironically, it's the boomers. You know, those old white men. They're the ones giving Trump his lowest approval ratings in the low 40s. The reality is the exact inversion of the cultural backlash thesis. The older folks are the ones most likely to reject Trump, whereas it's the youngest voters who are the most likely to support him. Rich Barris of the People's Pundit, the single most accurate pollster from 2024, said it this way, quote, ages 44 and below are consistently Trump's strongest group, especially those between the ages of 18 to 29. It's just weird how everything has turned upside down in our politics. Yeah, that old adage certainly seems to apply here. Truth is stranger than fiction. And yet, there are a number of indicators showing, if you can believe it, that Gen Z, those born between 1997 and 2012, Gen Z are actually the most conservative generation we have on record since we've been keeping tabs from just after World War II onwards. And I got the stats. These are going to absolutely blow you away. But first, gang, as many of you know, the average person today is unfortunately feeling the financial strain more than ever. Expenses are up, wages are not keeping pace, and many people are finding it nearly impossible to make ends meet. With little left over after covering the basics, it's no surprise that many are resorting to credit cards just to get by, often carrying high balances and interest rates in the 20s or even in the 30s. Now, if you're a homeowner and you're stuck in this cycle of mounting debt, you need to call my friends over at American Financing. Their salary-based mortgage consultants are saving homeowners an average of, get this, $800 a month, helping you put your hard-earned money back where it belongs. Plus, if you act now, you might even be able to skip your next mortgage payment. There are no upfront fees, so it costs you nothing to find out how much you could save each month. It's time to break free from the stress of debt. Call American Financing today and take control of your financial future. 866-889-1776. That's 866-889-1776, or visit AmericanFinancing.net/Turley. There was a very interesting YouGov survey taken in Britain a few years back that found that Gen Zers were only about 20 points more liberal than older voters. Now, I say only because a few years before that, the same survey, YouGov, found Gen Zers to be about 40 points more liberal than older voters. So if 20% of older voters consider themselves liberal, then that would mean 60% of Gen Zers would identify as liberal. That's what we found back in 2016. But by 2020, in just 4 years, that number actually got cut in half. It was only 20 points more liberal than older voters. But what was so fascinating with this YouGov survey was that the younger the voter, the more conservative they identified as. So those under the age of 22 in Britain were found to be considerably more conservative than those between the ages of 22 and 39. And here's the real shocker, according to the survey. Today, 18-year-olds in Britain are as right-wing as 40-year-olds. Isn't that amazing? That's what the YouGov survey concluded. 18-year-olds were as likely to self-identify as conservatives as your average 40-year-old. It's pretty astonishing stuff, but such findings seem to be corroborated by these polls showing Trump getting, by far, his highest and strongest support among voters under the age of 40. Another key ingredient to Trump's rising poll numbers appears to be his handling of Ukraine. Again, according to YouGov, there's been a 24-point swing over to Trump from Biden for how Trump is handling the Russia-Ukraine war. Trump is a net approval of +2, while Biden was underwater with a -22 this time last year. Now, of course, Biden chose escalation, actually getting us dangerously close to a full-blown outbreak of World War III with his green lighting of the use of ATACMS missiles being sent in the heart of Russia. Trump has put an end to that, and he's chosen the path of pursuing peace, which ironically has now put the Democrats firmly on the side of war. Again, talking about everything turning upside down in our politics, but there we are. But all of this, again, is just really par for the course when we look at these latest polls against the backdrop of the Harvard-Harris polling that came out last week. That really was a game changer because it showed the emergence of what's nothing less than a new supermajority in our nation. So the poll showed Trump enjoying supermajority support for virtually every single one of his policies, of his executive orders. So 81% of voters support deporting illegal migrants who've committed crimes. 76% support the undertaking of full-scale efforts to find and eliminate fraud and waste. 76% support closing the border. 69% support banning trans athletes from competing in female sports. 68% support declaring that there are only two genders. 65% support merit-based hiring and the elimination of all DEI initiatives. 63% support freezing all foreign aid. 61% support reciprocal tariffs. 59% support cutting government expenditures. 57% support ending bans on offshore drilling. Trump's America First agenda is the new super majority consensus, period, end of discussion. And that played out in last week's first special election since November, 1 week ago today. It was in one of the deepest blue states in the nation, state of Connecticut, my home state, in a special election for the state Senate. I mean, the Republican absolutely crushed. I mean, he blew away his Democrat opponent. Republican State Representative Jason Perillo won the state Senate seat by 7 points in a district that voted for Trump by just 0.5 back in November. So clearly Trump's popularity is translating over to the Republican Party at large with margins like that. But again, the key here is all of this popularity is ultimately being driven by the youngest voters in our nation. The under 40 vote now appears to be fully MAGA. They're on board the Trump train. And given that studies show that we tend to lean 1% more conservative with every year we age, this realignment suggests that the era of MAGA really is just beginning. We ain't seen nothing yet. By the way, click on the link in the description below to get all these articles and tweets I reference throughout my videos emailed to you each and every day. You're going to love it. We want you to have the best resources out there to convince your family and your friends of this new MAGA super age that's rising here.